Hi, everybody. It's Eric.
I'm JJ,
She's my wife.
and we are here to talk about carnivore and our journey on carnivore. And so, rumor has it that if you stick to a carnivore diet, your cravings will disappear and leave. And today we are going to talk about whether that's been true for us. Now, let me say, we are not super strict carnivore most of the time, so we understand
Yeah.
there may be an issue with that around cravings, but we want to talk about what really happens that causes us to have those cravings and those
Yeah.
desires for non-carnivore foods.
Yeah. Well, the number one for me is having really delicious non-carnivore foods. If when we do occasionally have our cheats, like whether it's ice cream or pasta or something like that, it is my brain just goes, that is what I want. That is the food source that I need. Meanwhile, my body says, "Don't eat that. It's horrible." And then the next day, I feel lousy. I feel gross. I feel low energy, and my brain's like, "But if you had more pasta, you'd feel better."
If only, well, but that's not the truth, right?
It's total lie. It's an absolute total lie.
So for me, I've always been a bit of more of a moderator than Eric. My entire life.
When we were first together, she would have like 2 Oreos, and she'd be like, "Oh, that was good," and I'd be like, "There's still an entire bag here. We're not done."
Now, I have to say, we've been married a while, so it's no longer 2 Oreos. I've sort of fallen into some of your
I create bad habits in people.
quantity habits, volume eating habits I've sort of adopted as my own. Yet, again, I'm able to stop. So for me, when I've had carbs, it is a little bit harder the next day or two to stop eating carbs, but my brain is not totally screaming at me or my body. Like, I'm pretty good at weaning back off. Yeah.
Another thing that really sparks me wanting to not stay on the carnivore bandwagon is the weather. Now, we just got back from California where it was sunny. It wasn't super warm, but it was sunny. It was nicer than Wisconsin where it was sub-zeros most of the time we were gone.
Blizzards, sub-zero.
Yeah,
It was one of the worst winters in a while.
We came back and my spirit just completely just deflated out of my body and just froze solid and fell flat on the gray, dreary, salt-encrusted road. And I wanted to feast on all of the delicious non-carnivore foods that I could think of.
So mood certainly can be a factor around craving those other things like comfort food,
Yeah.
right? A comfort, would you say? I know for me when I'm feeling ill, and I haven't actually been very sick the last few years, but when I am, oh man, do I want that soup and grilled cheese sandwich. I mean, that is, and toast. Definitely part of comfort food for me. Yeah.
When fall comes around, you know how I get with fall because all the fall foods are very carby and warm and this past fall I did pretty well.
You did.
I did actually quite well. And part of that was because we were really into carnivore and trying to. Why is my flashlight on? So it's easier once you're doing it and you get momentum with it. And so just staying course is much easier than getting back on course. And that's why when we decide we're going to go off plan, like for Christmas or something like that, we decide, then we do that, and then we kind of have our plan of how we're going to get back on.
Works pretty well for us to make empowered choices, I would say. Just, yes, this is what we're doing, and then the next day we're not.
And there's definitely, I mean, for both of us, there's been a lot of progress
Oh,
that we do not want to sacrifice.
yeah. Well, a lot of progress physically that we don't want to sacrifice, definitely. Yet, I even want to point out when we go off, it's still way better than it used to be.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Way better. So I always want to take stock of where we are compared to where we've been and celebrate the progress.
That's for sure.
Progress over perfection.
Yeah, because I mean, Dr. R, who is our integrative doc, he's like, it's really what you do 80% of the time is kind of sets your kind of base health level. And I think that's true. Now, I don't want to be just 80% compliant with carnivore or ketovore because I want to make sure I'm trying to figure out my blood marker
Yes,
puzzle
yeah.
and we just recorded a video on that that'll be coming out soon. And so I want to solve that before I allow myself to put too much wiggle room into the diet for the long term.
Which solving means more compliant, definitely.
Yeah, you have to be compliant. It's like it's an elimination diet, right? It's taking things out in order so when you add back, you can see what the effect is. And that's when we talk about carnivore as a skill, that's the experimentation phase that I think we've talked about, is that you then know how to play with the parameters so that you can see what the effect is.
Which reminds me, speaking of experiment parameters, etc., that is, I've talked in the past that one of my levers I pull when I have had some carbs is, for me, fasting works really well. And I'm talking about intermittent fasting. So I will just take the next day, I might do one meal instead of two. So I'll just do a more extended fast, and that seems to reset me pretty well. But again, that's me.
When we came out of the holidays, though, that was my plan, and I just skipped breakfast and lunch and started with a really good carnivore meal for dinner, and then it was beef, bacon, butter, and eggs for a week plus.
And that was the plan, yes.
Yeah, and it was just remarkable. It was just like my body just said, "Oh, okay, let's shed some water, let's shed some inflammation," and I was back into fighting fettle. Is that the right word?
I think it might be. So I wanted to mention a couple other things that can take you off the carnivore course. And again, I think the moral of the story is really to try to have a plan, be gentle with yourself, and have a plan. One thing that we're in the midst of is travel season for us. As we mentioned, we are in Wisconsin. Eric's mood does the deflating balloon thing.
I don't want to be here. Even right now, this second, I'd rather be someplace else.
Yes. So we try to schedule some trips during this time of year. And so we just got back from California. That was a work trip. And now we've got a pleasure trip coming up soon.
Yeah.
In less than 2 weeks. And so travel can be something that makes carnivore more challenging. I love Laura Spath. She is able to travel with carnivore. So if you haven't checked out her channel, check it out. And being carnivore is her non-negotiable. So that isn't my non-negotiable. I try to stick to a meat-based whole food diet when I'm traveling. And that works well for me. But it can be something that throws you off course.
Absolutely. I mean, in California, I did not stick super close to carnivore. I did the first maybe 4 or 5 days. I was really good about it. But then where we were staying was within range of every restaurant in the Valley in LA and DoorDash. And so there was definite danger there. But even with that,
yes,
it was compared to what I would have done in the past, totally different. Totally different.
Totally.
And I did not come back feeling like I had lost all of my progress and gone completely back to square one at all. I just felt like, oh, that was that. And now it's like I felt an incentive this morning when I made my eggs and bacon. I was like, oh, there's no question. And then for lunch, I wasn't craving a steak. I don't know people who crave steaks. Maybe you do occasionally. But what happens is, I think we both had this, was like, you know what? I think I need a steak.
Oh.
There's something about the way I feel that's just like telling me, but it's not the same craving. It's not like, oh, that would feel good going down.
That's true. It's different.
Or that would be a delightful flavor in the mouth. It's more of like the body's going, I need meat. And so I had my steak today, and it had been some days since I'd had an actual steak. And it was amazing. I was not looking forward to it. And every bite of it, I was like, this is what I needed. Remember Fred Flintstone used to have those like Brontosaurus steaks on the grill?
Yep.
I was like, that's what I needed. And when I was done, I pushed the plate away and I was like, I needed that.
Yeah.
And when I pushed a plate of pancakes away, I've never pushed a plate of pancakes away. When I finished a plate of pancakes, I'm like, oh, I should not have eaten that. Ugh. I did not have any pancakes on this trip.
No.
They were there. There was that one place. The pancakes were like a half an inch thick,
They were beautiful.
and I watched them going by, and I was like, if I eat that, I will regurgitate that for the rest of the day. So I didn't. That was a little graphic.
But yeah, it was a much better trip for
Yeah.
you. And your body buffered what you did eat pretty well.
There was a couple nights where I had to pop the Tums. But the what was funny to me is the first thing that kind of broke was the salad.
What?
Was
Do
we
tell.
we went to a meal and we had salad.
Oh, that-
and it's like I wouldn't normally have a salad on carnivore, and to me, a salad is a kind of a treat now. When I was a kid, I hated it, and I like balsamic dressings because there's sugar in it. And I remember it was an arugula salad, and I was like, "This is so good," and it didn't bother me.
No. And then I think it might be the final thing that I wanted to mention around non-carnivore cravings for me is a big, big, big one. I'm not a huge emotional eater around mood where I feel sad and I need food or anything like that. I consider myself an energy eater. So for me, if I'm feeling low energy, which by the way happens a lot less when I do eat carnivore, yet when I'm eating, when I am experiencing low energy, I so crave a carb. It feels like my body is screaming for sugar. Now I've experimented. I know carnivores say have some salt, have some fat. I've done that. I don't usually give into it usually anymore. But I don't find I don't find my body calming down from the sugar or the fat actually. At least not yet.
I have different triggers. I mean, energy would be definitely make me want to maybe eat something because I was bored, and eating something really tasty would be kind of a form of entertainment. But mine is around if I'm low mood, or which is slightly different than the
Yeah.
energy thing, or if I feel like celebrating.
That yes.
If there's like
celebrating.
a exciting thing happening in life, I'm like, oh, let's go to the fork in the road and get their mac and cheese.
It's gluten free.
Well, she gets the gluten free,
Good.
and that's a mistake. But it's just these patterns get programmed very young, and you don't even realize until you notice and make a point of noticing that there's a trigger that makes you go, oh, I want to have this. You may even know exactly what the food is. For some people, going to the movie theater, popcorn or M&Ms or something like that would be an automatic just association. You'd almost feel like deprived if you didn't have it. Now, I don't have that because I didn't really like popcorn growing up. And when we went to the theater as a kid, my parents absolutely refused to buy that expensive waste of money treat. So I didn't develop that association. But there's other things that if I, what's a good example? If it's fall and there's leaves and it's like 50 degrees and a little rainy, my whole being says you need a mocha from Starbucks and some sort of pastry to go with it.
Now let's say that fall, not just making it up, it's true. Fall is his favorite time of year.
Yes.
It's Halloween, his birthday, Thanksgiving, into Christmas. Favorite time of year. So
Yeah.
it's automatically celebratory for
Yeah.
you. You love it.
And I want to have all of the foods associated with it. And this past year, I did really, really well.
Yes.
And avoided that. For the most part, I made very specific decisions when I was going to have a treat. And usually it didn't really pay off. And here's was a new thing.
Yes,
You
go
may
ahead.
be gonna about to say this. If it wasn't that good, I stopped eating it.
Yes. Yes. That's one
I didn't know that was a thing you could do.
He's talking about the pancakes earlier, right? He's like literally, is that's another cartoon?
Yeah,
I don't know.
licking the syrup residue off the plate.
But yeah, that's fascinating. And learning that something isn't actually worth it. Like, I'm not even probably going to have it next year. Like
Yeah.
that ship has sailed. Yes.
And going to bed at night, having had all of that stuff and feeling kind of bloated and maybe having a little reflux and going, yeah, but it's over now. It's in the past. So now I'm not enjoying it. Now I'm regretting it. And I would have been much happier if I would have skipped those things and been able to, kind of see the thoughts and divert that attention and energy away from those food choices to something else. So that was a question I was going to ask you. When you have that feeling of like, this is the trigger, this is the moment, this is the time where I want this particular thing and it's not on the list, what's the move?
What's the move? What do you do in those instances? We'd love to hear from you.
You can do this and type it into the comments. Or if you're one of those Gen Zers who knows how to do this with your thumbs, and you could do it that way. I wouldn't personally be able to get any of the words correct if I did that. I'd have to backspace, and autocomplete would have a completely different sentence in there by the time I was done. You can dictate, though.
Yeah.
You could dictate it, and that might result in the right words coming in. Love to hear more from you guys. You know what to do. Do it.
Until next time. Bye-bye.